Okay, we're going to talk now about intermediate codecs and how to export them. So we're going to take as given the discussion about why an intermediate codec is important. Suffice it to say that it is what we call an edit-friendly codec, meaning that an intermediate codec is actually it's better suited to use for video editing software than codecs that come directly off the camera. Now, how to create one, right? So you'll take, you'll export the same way that you would export anything out of Premiere. You'd select a sequence either here in the sequence timeline or by choosing one of the sequences in your project pane and go up to File, Export, Media, and it's going to bring up this look. So obviously we don't want to use this 4:3 aspect here. We want it to be very close to the we want it to actually be HD first and foremost. So we'll skip this and for this time through we're going to export it as Cineform. But understand that you have several file formats. The ones that we're going to probably use most of all for this purpose for intermediate codecs would be QuickTime format and the DNX HD MXF OP1A. But for this demo, I'm just going to be doing it. I'm going to be exporting as Cineform. So this is the GoPro Cineform codec. Notice that for this, you do have the presets down here. I'm going to, and notice I have some custom presets that I've created all the way over here. I'm not going to use them for this demo. I'm going to actually build it by hand. So let's start by selecting a custom. Go down here to the video codec. Notice that you can select, if it's not already selected, you would select GoPro Cineform or DNX HD or Apple ProRes 422. Okay. And remember that you can choose 422 or 422 HQ, but do not, for intermediate purposes, use LT or proxy. They're too small, too low quality. So, again, we're going to choose GoPro Cineform and make sure that our settings all match our source. So we'll click Match Source here, and it will basically set all of your frame size, your frame rate, your field order, meaning progressive scan or versus interlaced, and your pixel aspect ratio to all match the sequence. The only other thing to choose in the video the video pane here is what they call the depth, the bit depth of the rendering, and for this we're going to use the default YUV 10-bit. On the audio tab, you'll see that audio is actually delivered uncompressed to the file. And the important things to remember are the sample rate of 48 kilohertz. You do have options here. Do not go below 48 kilohertz. Generally speaking, you don't need to go above it. And the sample size. Generally speaking, 16-bit should be adequate. You might find that for some post-production workflows you want to go up to 24-bit. Very rarely are you, almost never are you going to go below 16-bit. And also equally rarely would you move to something like 32-bit or 32-bit float. Those are, I mean, you can, it's not going to necessarily increase the fidelity of your final product. And okay, so the next thing to choose here is whether we export it immediately inside of Premiere Pro or we go and add it to the Adobe Media Encoder queue. Notice that the queue is actually lit up a little bit brighter. It's white, whereas export is kind of gray. Adobe's giving you a little bit of a hint here, is that generally speaking they want you, they're encouraging you to use the media encoder, and in fact these days I actually agree with them. I didn't used to, but I do now. So let's click Q and it will immediately bring up Adobe Media Encoder. I've already had it loaded, and in a few short moments we're going to see the job that we just created show up in the queue here. Okay, there we are. That did not take very long. Notice that if we hover over, you'll see that the settings that we've created have been brought across. Notably, I forgot to name the file, the output file, something useful. So I'll click on that now. And notice that this is not the folder I was supposed to be doing it, but that's fine. I will set it up as Chimera Crowd Funding 2017-01-17, and I'll actually just call Cineform so that you kind of you put it in the name of the file. Generally speaking, if you did it and if you wanted to shorten it, it would probably be something like CFHD would be another way to describe the file. That would clearly mark it as Cineform. You click Save, and it's going to update the name of the file to be output, and then the only thing left to do is to come over here and press the play button and let it do its thing. So we're going to click this, and we'll come back when it's finished. Okay, that was very satisfying watching the rendering finish. We finish up and we go immediately to look at the file itself. So we can come over here, look at the file that we created, which is, as we can see, it is 505, almost 506 megabytes in size. Generally speaking, codecs like this, like Cineform and ProRes, DNx HD, are going to be about 2 to 2.5 times the size of a similarly encoded or the similar file, meaning the same of frame size, frame rate, etc., encoded H.264, depending on the bit rate of the H.264 encoding. But generally speaking, you're going to see a 2 to 2.5 time difference between, say, what the camera would encode and what you'll get from these intermediate codecs. Okay, the last thing I wanted to talk about here is the fact that if you try to open this and view it inside of a player, whether that's VLC, and we can try with VLC, but generally speaking, I was just going to try this with QuickTime, is you're going to see that it's going to say VLC could not decode the format. No description for this codec. See, notice that CFHD. It's not. The playback doesn't understand. It read the audio because it was starting to play the audio from the file, but it couldn't understand the video because Cineform's codec is not loaded for the players to play back. It's only loaded inside of Premiere so that Premiere can edit to it. So just keep that in mind, that you might not be able to play it here, but if, for instance, you came back to this and you dragged it back into a Premiere project. So let's go over to Premiere and import it here. We'll go back to this one and we'll pull the CFHD, import it in, and if we double click it and bring it up here, you'll see that you can play it inside of Premiere. It's just not something you can play outside of Premiere. That's all. But it is an edit-friendly intermediate codec that will allow you some more headroom for your editor to apply filters or effects and be able to play back without losing frame or to drop frames. That is it for this, so get busy. The other two options that you have for the other, so this is one half of the assignment really. It's to do this you have one of three, or you have 2 out of 3 choices for your export. Cineform, which I've shown you, Apple ProRes 422, which is really only available to you on Mac, or DNx HD, which is available to you on either Mac or Windows. And so you guys will need to generate another file that is one of those other 2, and that's what you're going to turn in. Okay? That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.